Alright guys, welcome back. In this video we will talk about the prediction for the next ban list. We should have the announcement for the next ban list within the next days, and I'm basing my estimation on Untapped GG's data, since I think that Konami has some similar data points. These are data points from players all over the lender indicating the win rate of the decks, and I think Konami also has access to something like this, but with more data points, and this is where they probably are designing their ban list from. So we can see right here Blue Eyes is the strongest deck right now, and then we have Snake Eyes, Centurion, Merit, Espia, Exodia, Temper Dragons, Kastura, Memento, and Labyrinth. So this could be a very interesting ban list or a very boring ban list, because in my opinion there's only one deck that really needs a hit right now, but we could see some strange stuff or we could see nothing really happening. The one deck that I am talking about needing to receive hits just to let it basically die is Snake Eyes. Then again, at the moment, I mean, it's the second best deck, but not a lot of people are playing it. 6.4% popularity, that's not that much. So not quite sure whether we even want to hit this right now, kill this finally. Maybe we will see some more limitation hits. And I will also talk about some other decks and what you could potentially do to them if you wanted to weaken them. So let's first talk about the Snake Eyes stuff. At some point, I could imagine Diabellstar maybe going to 1. She's at 3 at the moment, and Konami seems to like these consistency hits on the Snake Eye engine, so Diabellstar going to 1 or maybe to 2 is something I could definitely see. Maybe they want to tune down this deck even more. Then again, we are getting a new support for the, it's not on the list right now, for the White Forest deck, and White Forest goes together with the Diabellstar stuff, and I think White Forest is not a big problem and won't be a big problem in the future. So I'm not quite sure whether you want to punish White Forest for the sins of Snake Eyes, sinful spoils, haha. But yeah, I could definitely see something happening to the Diabellstar, maybe to 2, just to decrease the consistency. Then again, at the moment, Snake Eyes does not seem to be the biggest problem, so I'm not even sure whether we will see this. Another quite obvious candidate, in my opinion, is Bonfire. Bonfire at the moment is at 2. This makes sense, in my opinion, because firstly, we can see it's limited. I think this is TCG, and the TCG right now, I'm not quite sure about the OCG standing at the moment, but where this would make sense is because this is also a support card for Ryziel, one of the next 2 dominating decks that we will get here. And we already have the replacement for Bonfire, which is the 7th Tachyon, which we have received in the, not this set, but the set before, which is an XYZ search card, basically replacing Bonfire, which is why you could definitely put Bonfire to 1, hitting the Snake Eyes and all the fire decks, but also hitting Ryziel and forcing people to buy the 7th Tachyon, which is also an ultra rare. I think this would be one of the smartest moves, which accomplishes multiple goals. So I would definitely not be surprised seeing Bonfire at 1 at some point. This was obviously clear since Reinforcement of the Army, which is even a worse card at the moment, is also at 1. So this generic searcher card, it was clear that at some point that would probably go to 1. Then for the Snake Eye stuff, and this is what I would like to see, either hit the Snake Eyes from Birch Dragon or the original Sympho Spoils, forbid one of them. You can see right here TCG has decided to forbid the original Sympho Spoils. And we might forbid the Snake Eyes from Birch Dragon. I think both would work in making the deck way weaker. Then again, OCG has never really killed this deck, it just disappeared. This might be what is happening to Snake Eyes if we just introduce Ryziel and Malice, because with all of the hits to Snake Eyes, we can see it right here with Blue Eyes Primite, which normally should not be stronger than Snake Eyes, but I honestly think at the moment it is. If you want to know what the best decks are at the moment, I've made a tier list video. It is linked in the top right corner. Also, if you like my videos, please consider subscribing, hitting the thumbs up and the notification bell. Thank you a lot in advance. So at the moment, Blue Eyes Primate is better. Shouldn't be better than Snake Eyes, honestly, but I think it is. And this is where I think we might not even see this kill hit to Snake Eyes. But Snake Eyes might just fade out of the meta once we get Ryziel and Malice. Then Blue Eyes Primate will still be very dominant, but then the new threats will just replace this, because the people are just done with this deck. Nobody wants to play Snake Eyes anymore. We have seen and done enough Snake Eyes combos. Don't get me wrong, I like the Snake Eyes engine. It's cool, displacing it in the spell trap zone stuff. I really like this, but we have played this for more than 1 year now at a good power level, and it's enough. So if you want to kill it, you go Original Sympho Spoils or Flamberge Dragon to Forbidden. But as I already said, we might not even see something like this. I think Bonfire to 1 is even more likely. And then these are the hits that I am expecting. And now let's talk about something I don't really expect, but let's talk about what you could do to Blue Eyes if you wanted to do something to Blue Eyes. Obviously, we don't hit the Primate engine. It's new and it will receive additional support in the future. Do I think they will hit Blue Eyes? I don't think so. Blue Eyes is the strongest deck right now, but if we just introduce Rising and Malice, this will tune down a bit. Obviously, also a lot of people are just hyped for the deck. It is good, but what would you do if you wanted to hit Blue Eyes? I think there are two cards that are quite obvious here, and we have seen this in this current event, showing us what you could do to Blue Eyes. The first one is Maiden of White 2/1. We have this at 3 at the moment, making it more consistent. You basically always have access to your True Light. Also, if you put this at 1, you would need to be very careful with your Maiden. If it gets banished, then it would be a big problem, because then you can't reset True Light. So I think the most logical one would be the Maiden, to create a sort of bottleneck for the deck, where you really need to protect your Maiden and take care of your Maiden. Otherwise, you can't reset your True Light, and your opponent can basically weaken your grind game by removing your True Light and the Maiden, and then you have no access to them anymore, which wouldn't even be that bad, since we already have Lordly Load, which can also special summon a Blue Eyes. The next card that could receive a hit, or would be the next logical one, we also see this in the event currently, is Wishes for Eyes of Blue. This is more of a consistency hit, and in my opinion, this makes a bit less sense than just hitting the Maiden, because Maiden would change the deck's strategy on multiple levels, whereas Wishes for Eyes of Blue would just mean that you have less access to the card, will less often see it in your hand. But I honestly think that putting this at 2 might even be the better call, since I already think at the moment you could also play this at 2, and we have seen this in some decks in the OCG, since you don't want to brick on 3 cards of this, and you will rarely ever be able to activate 3, since if you activate Wishes, you would need to search either your True Light, your Majesty, the trap card, or your Roar, the spell summon card. And at the time where you've activated 2 Wishes for Blues, for Eyes of Blue, you already have set with your True Light the trap or something, and then these cards are just dead. So I think playing this at 2 might even be optimal. So if this should be a hit in any way, I think this needs to go to 1, because then you definitely would want to play 2 at least. I don't really see people playing just 1 if they could, but if we force them to play 1, this would be better. Putting this at 2 might even make the deck better, honestly, but hitting the Maiden to 1, I think, is the most logical step that would weaken the Blue Eyes engine. Then again, I don't know if you really want to do this. The Blue Eyes engine is just that strong because of the Primate stuff, and yeah, I don't really think that we will see any Blue Eyes hits, but these could be in what we are potentially doing. And then some like off the chart hits, we could also see something happening into the Millennium engine being played in a lot of decks, and the most logical one would be the Sangajin, because it's the best one. Putting this to 1 would definitely weaken the consistency of this package, but then Exodia would also take an unnecessary hit. Exodia has basically done nothing wrong, so I'm not quite sure whether we will do this. This is a hit I wouldn't really expect this, but this is something you could do to weaken this entire Millennium package in Snake Eyes, in Jubel, in Azamina, White Forest. But I think if you want to hit these decks, you would do it in a different route. And then something that could finally happen here, which I could also see weakening something like Snake Eyes, is Appaloosa being forbidden, like we have this in the TCG. Needs to be said that this is not the case in the OCG, and OCG is basically what we are referring to, if you want to call it. So I don't really see Appaloosa going to Forbidden. Baron de Fleur, for example, is not the problem right now. Appaloosa is also not the biggest problem, but Snake Eyes is obviously heavily relying on this, and if you would ban the Appaloosa, then we would need to resort to something like the Rabbit that can set the statue, basically, like we did it in the TCG. This is something that I could see at some point. This might also weaken Malice in the future, because if you can play this, you can pretty easily make a 2 material Appaloosa with Malice cards. This would definitely be a pre-hit to Malice also. So this is something I think could definitely happen, but I'm not really expecting this. So this is where I think this Banlist is pretty tricky to predict, because I'm not quite sure what they want to do. Do they want to kill Snake Eyes? Do they just want to replace it with Rising and Malice? This obviously also depends on whether we get Ryzeal or Malice in the next pack. I think if they give us Ryzeal or Malice in the next pack, then they don't really need to hit Snake Eyes right now, because it will just disappear. And then something like Blue Eyes, will it get a hit? Not right now, maybe in the future, but I think in the future it will just not be the strongest deck anymore if we get Malice and Ryzeal. So this might just be a list where nothing really happens concerning the fact that we get the new strong decks in the future pretty soon. If not in the next pack, then probably with the pack afterwards. But now let me know in the comments what you think. What do you think will happen? What do you think needs to happen? Let me know what other decks you are most fed up with. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for being here, and we will see each other in the next one.